Welcome to ZTN Prime on this, the tail end of what has been an exciting journey, a journey that's had us on our toes for quite a bit of a while. This is the home stretch. Of course, if you followed us from the run-up to the elections right up to now, it has been quite a journey. But yesterday, it culminated in the swearing-in ceremony. So this is the swearing-in ceremony today. My name is Robert Mkodiwa, and I'm welcoming you to this show where we're going to be looking at the cabinet that was announced yesterday by the President, Emmerson Mnangagwa. He announced a cabinet, and it's something that we have been eagerly anticipating and looking forward to. And this afternoon at State House, we're going to be showing you the live swearing-in ceremony of the particular incumbents that are taking over cabinet for the next 5 years, presumably, of course. However, let us take a look at how we got here, because it's been, as I said, quite a bit of the journey. Now, if you can see, this is where we ended last time around at the tail end of the presidential election, where Emmerson Mnangagwa won 52.60% of the vote compared to the 44 that his closest rival, Nelson Chamisa, got. And of course, that is how the nation is colored with regards the seats, as it were, that were grabbed by the particular parties that were leading and, of course, occupying the House of Assembly. Now, perhaps to just draw you back a little bit as to where these people come from, how the president gets this pool where he then decides who to pick on. Of course, as you know, we've got a bicameral system here in Zimbabwe, and it is from the upper house and the lower house that the president has the privilege to pick his particular candidates for the cabinet. And so, as you can see, we've got the National Assembly, the House of Assembly, and of course the Senate. This is where he has the privilege to then pick who he has to run with. And at the end of the elections, of course, the CCC had won 73 seats. ZANU-PF had won 136, all for a tally of 209. And of course, as you know, there's one candidate who died in the run-up to the election, and so instead of the 210, Emmerson Mnangagwa has to choose from 209. And of course, he even had the privilege to choose from CCC if he wanted to. But from, of course, that live broadcast that we showed you yesterday, we now know that he has picked his cabinet from his particular party, from that pool of 136. So let's go and see further what happened, who is eligible to become a minister, and where the president draws the powers constitutionally to then constitute his cabinet. And the pool of eligible ministerial candidates, of course, as I said earlier, comes from the House of Senate and the House of the National Assembly. Of course, he can draw from the 7 non-constituency members that he has a right, a privilege to then appoint, of course, and he then can form this cabinet of his, a cabinet that we saw him form yesterday. Of course, this is not the first time that he is forming a cabinet. We do know that in the beginning, when he had the opportunity in 2018, for example, to create a cabinet and draw from this vast pool, he did come up with a particular list of people, as it were, that he put together. And those cabinet members from the year 2008 included Mthuli Ncube, who was the Minister of Finance. Obadiah Moyo was the Minister of Health then. Opa Jim Kashiri was the Minister of Defense. Groundbreaking that was, because she was the first female Minister of Defense. Olympian Kirsty Coventry was drawn into the pool. Of course, she was non-constituency last time around. And we had other names like Sekai Nzenza, in public service. The Minister of Information there was Monica Mtswangwa, another woman, Stembiso Nyoni, another woman with the portfolio of women's affairs and SMEs. And of course, we had other names, including Winston Chitando, who was the Minister of Mines and Mining Development, whilst Mangaliso Ndlovu was the Minister there of Industry and Commerce. We've got Joel Bigimatiza, who in 2018 was appointed as the Transport and Infrastructure Minister, and of course he is unfortunately late. And of course there are a couple of changes that had to happen along the way, which is why I said presumably holding those offices for 5 years, because don't forget, the president also has got a right to shuffle his cabinet and make changes and tweaks as and when he sees it as necessary. Of course, we then look at the current cabinet that he constituted yesterday. We now all know the names. We're going to be discussing some of these people going forward. But a quick rundown. Slate number 1, Minister of Finance, Mthuli Ncube, remains unchanged. On if ministers were a stock exchange, of course, he remains pegged at Mthuli Ncube being the Minister of Finance. His deputy is David Kudam Mnangagwa, a freshman coming through this time around. The Minister of Primary and Secondary Education there is Timoyo. A lot of people have been asking for more information on Timoyo. Of course, we shall be getting you that. Even the papers today are failing to at least uncover a picture of Timoyo, but we shall be giving you more information on the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education. He is deputized by Angeline Gata. In the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, we have Amon Murwira, a veteran, of course, in that line of work in education, being deputized by Simeli Zezwe Subanda. And in the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Jenfan Muswere moves from ICT and has been appointed to that portfolio, a very important portfolio, if you remember, because Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, as the president in the previous government, had spoken about how he wanted communication to be at the heart and center of government policy and articulation. So Jenfan Muswere coming there. He has no deputy minister at the moment. Women's Affairs gets into the hands of the erstwhile Minister of Information, Monica Mtswangwa. She moves from Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, and she joins the Ministry of Women's Affairs and deputized by Jennifer Mhlanga. The Ministry of Defense remains with that historic appointment. Second time around, Opam Chinguri Kashiri, still the Minister of Defense, while Levi Maihlome is the Deputy Minister in that particular portfolio. Of course, that's slate number 1. More changes were announced yesterday. Of course, we gave you those changes live here from State House on Zim Papers Television Network on ZTN Prime, your Prime channel. What did we uncover? We discovered that Kazembe holds on to the Home Affairs portfolio. He has no deputy minister appointed as of now. Information Communication Technology goes to Tatinda Mavetera. Tatinda Mavetera is a freshman, and she comes in. Now she has a constituency, but her first dalliance, she was a proportional representation member of Parliament. And this time around, she gets a ticket through a constituency and bounces right into a ministerial appointment. Very well-known figure she is, and she is being deputized by Dingumuzi Puti. Dingumuzi Puti retaining his portfolio there as the Deputy Minister of Information Communication Technology. So while Tatinda Mawetera comes in as a freshman, she's got the able hands of a deputy who's been there before, and certainly continuity is granted. Health and Child Care goes to Dr. Mombeshora. Of course, as we showed you in 2018, it had gone to Obadiah Moyo, and then after that it went into the hands of Vice President Constantino Dominic Gouveia Chiwenga. and he relinquishes that title to Dr. Mombeshora. And of course, there is no current deputy minister appointed in the Ministry of Health and Child Care. The Veterans of Liberation, the Ministry of Veterans Affairs, a very important portfolio coming here and in the hands of war veteran Chris Muchangwa, and of course no deputy being announced there yesterday. Tourism and hospitality goes into the hands of Barbara Rodzi, with Tongai Mnangagwa being the deputy there. Mines and mining development sees the bouncing in of Jemu Soda, the Member of Parliament for Mzarabani North. You will remember that he's no freshman. He, of course, is the erstwhile Minister of Energy, and he leaves energy and joins mines and mining development, taking over from Winston Chitando, who has to relinquish his position under the mine, and we will tell you much later where he's going, where he's going to be stationed, but definitely not in the mines or trenches. Industry and commerce goes into the hands of Stembiso Nyoni. Stembiso Nyoni was with Women's Affairs, and she has no deputy, as well as Jemu Soda. And we may see a couple of changes going forward where some of these empty or vacant deputy ministerial positions shall be filled. And then sport. Kirsty Coventry bounces back there, but not with Tino Machakaire this time around, but with Emily Jesiah. Now, this is now just a standalone ministry, the Ministry of Sport under Kirsty Coventry. And of course, that's something that we uncovered yesterday. We're going to be speaking a lot more about that going forward, because I've also got guests elsewhere that are going to be discussing, the ministerial appointments. But we don't end there. And as I said, we lost Jemu Soda there to the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development. But no worries, because energy and power development now goes into the hands of Edgar Moyo, who has no deputy. Foreign Affairs is now in the hands of Frederick Shawa. That is a continuation, and I will tell you that Frederick Shawa has been at the helm of issues and national and issues identity for a long time. And some who have been following our broadcast keenly will know that he was one of the people on the team that was put together to create the national flag as we know it today. So he's going to be flying our flag at Foreign Affairs, a flag that he knows all too well how it was conceived. Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs goes to Ziyambi, continuity there, one of the appointees. Of course, as you remember, he had not clinched a parliamentary seat in the ZANU-PF preliminaries, but his expertise in justice, legal and parliamentary affairs gives him another bite of the cherry, and he's deputized there by Obet Mazingunye. Local government, that is where Winston Chitando emerges from under the mines into, and he's going to, of course, be overseeing all issues local government. Housing and amenities, as it were, goes to Daniel Garwe, Yeukai Simbanegavi being the deputy. Public service labor goes to Julai Moyo, while Mrs. Dina is the deputy. We've got transport remaining, of course, in the hands of Felix Mona. No deputy for him, quite a bit of work. He's going to be doing the runaround himself. No deputy to send around. And of course, we've got youth. Now that's been torn away from sports, and Tino Machakaire runs with it, being the youth in the erstwhile ministry where he was deputizing Kirsty Coventry. But Tino this time is not going to be the deputy here or junior. He's got his own junior that he's going to be sending around on errands to make sure that things are spick and span in the Ministry of Youth. And his junior is Junior Mupamanga. Agriculture, if you are anxious to know what's happening there at the bastion of our life, be anxious no more in this beautiful agrarian economy, because that portfolio goes into the hands of Anxious Masuga. Anxious Masuga being deputized by two deputies, Vangelis Haritatus and, of course, David Marapira. Now that portfolio has always had, of course, 2 deputies. And that's why I say it is the bastion of life, the hard work, energy, and tireless dedication that defines us as Zimbabweans. And just perhaps before we go to the interviews that I would want to have, there's something that I want to show you on where the powers come from to appoint these cabinet ministers, and where the president draws that within the constitution. So the constitution of Zimbabwe, of course, and section 104, dictates how that is done. So cabinet is appointed in terms of section 104, as I said, of the constitution. Now, ministers and deputy ministers are appointed from among senators or members of the National Assembly, but up to 7 are chosen for their professional skills and competence may be appointed from outside parliament. So it's not mandatory. It can be 7 or less. But of course, usually when you want to tap into the technocrats, it's always advisable for a president to go all the way into this. Now, in appointing ministers and deputy ministers, the president must be guided by considerations of regional and gender balance. So if you were watching yesterday, you'll remember Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa was mentioning where the person is coming from and what gender they were: male, Mashonaland Central, female, Matabeleland South, and so on and so forth. So that's something that has to guide the president. So that's how that is done. That is where he gets his people and puts them together to form an arsenal. Now, are you happy with that team? Are you not? What are people saying? And this is a discussion that we shall be having, because here at ZTN, we don't just stop by giving you the visuals. We also invite through knowledgeable people who can go beyond that story and give us the day too and unpack certain things for us. And of course, we've got people like that. So we're going to show you the swearing in ceremony, because these people are incumbent, but they're cabinet ministers elect. We don't know that they're ministers yet, because they have not taken that sacred oath of office to swear allegiance to the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe and to promise that they will serve us well and truly and diligently. As our anthem says, may leaders be exemplary. And in order for us to hold them accountable, that being exemplary has to be sworn or affirmed on the sacred book, the holy book, the Quran or the Bible, or they affirm that they shall well and truly dispense of their duties as we expect, and to the dreams, hopes, and aspirations of Zimbabwe. So we are going to be giving you that swearing-in ceremony that's taking place at State House, of course, but also we're going to be giving you some in-depth analysis from some hand-picked jewels in the world of thought and thought leadership. So don't go away. This is Election 2023, the swearing-in ceremony of Cabinet. as we know, we are continuing with this coverage of the swearing-in ceremony, and right now we've got visuals coming in from State House where the ceremony of swearing these cabinet ministers is now on in earnest.
Kazembe, Ziyambi, Monica Mchangwa, Christopher Mchangwa, Jennifer Mswere, Love Mo Matuke, Winston Chitando, Ntuli Ngube, Amon Murira, Daniel Garwe, Anxious Jongwe Masuka, Paul Mavima, Ngobizita Mangaliso Ndlovu, Douglas Mombeshora, Felix Tapiwa Mona, Keist Leif Dizo. Huh? Liu. Bakoman. Keist Liu Coventry, James Soda, Barbara Rodzi, Tatenda Mavetera, Tino Machakaire, Edgar Moyo, and Torerai Moyo as ministers of the government of Zimbabwe. Now, therefore, I, Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, do call upon you all to take the oath of minister. Proceed.
I, swear that I will be faithful to Zimbabwe and in the office of minister will uphold the Constitution and all other laws of Zimbabwe, that I will give my advice to the President of Zimbabwe freely and to the best of my judgment whenever I am required to do so for the good management of the public affairs of Zimbabwe, that I will not disclose directly or indirectly any secret that is vetted in cabinet or any secret that is entrusted to me in the course of my duties as minister, and that in all respects I will perform the duties of my office faithfully and to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Send. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Shekau, Hugo, Shekau. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Of course, there we are seeing those images coming through live from State House, where there has been a swearing in, which continues, of course, as I speak right now. And this swearing in ceremony, as you may have noticed, is being conducted in tranches, as it were. And we've seen some being sworn in. We've seen Kazembe, of course, with Home Affairs. We've seen Frederick Shava, who, of course, is bearing our flag with Foreign Affairs. So Kazembe, there, of course, also being sworn in to Opam Chinguri, who I was speaking earlier about, an important somebody in terms of what we're going to be discussing, because I've got a guest that's coming on soon, and that guest is going to be discussing issues of gender. And of course, Opam Chinguru, as I've alluded to earlier on, the first defense minister in Zimbabwe, who of course is a woman, very significant. But what strides have we taken? What strides need to be taken? I'm going to be talking to my guest later on, and that's what we're going to be discussing. But as you can see there, we're getting feed and visuals from State House as there continues to be that swearing in tranches.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you, Excellency.
As you know, he previously was the Minister of Mines and Mining Development, and Winston Chitando, they're moving over to the new portfolio in local government. He has been at the helm of quite a difficult period in the Ministry of Mines in terms of legislature. There's been a lot that's been happening. There has been a lot on his hands, and certainly a lot of developments with regards issues around lithium and lithium legislation. And lithium is a great contributor, or we expect is going to be a great contributor to the fiscus, and who else to manage that national purse than this man, Mthuli Ncube, who we are now seeing he's just signed and affirmed that he will well and truly serve his country and serve the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe. And of course, Mthuli Ncube coming back as one of those 7 that we talked about, the 7 technocrats that the president has discretion in selecting. And of course, the president, Emmerson Damuzumnangagwa, there flanked by his lieutenants, Campbell Dugish Muhadi, the vice president, and vice president Chiwenga, and they, of course, are also in attendance. And now, Minister Eamon Murwira had quite a lot to say about him. I did say a veteran in issues around education, and he returns in a similar portfolio. And there certainly is continuity there, as we expect to see that portfolio grow in leaps and bounds. Of course, that's the bastion of our nation. Education is celebrated country of the educated, and we obviously would always want to maintain that very prestigious tag. We have Daniel Garwe, the Minister of Housing. Of course, housing, a very, very key and integral part of whatever the President and Cabinet have to work around, because we certainly need more and more housing for an ever-growing population in our country.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Excellency.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, Excellency.
Congratulations.
Rakora ka feketswa patšhe
Madi, Your Excellency.
wa feketsa ya ko patšhe
Say disciple, right, Your Excellency. The follower.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Lee?
Lee.
Just Lee.
Just Lee. Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
And thank you for your comment.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
And now, of course, in the picture there, Barbara Rodzi takes over her portfolio and, of course, signs her oath. And earlier on there, we saw Kirsty Coventry signing and taking her oath as the Minister of Sport. So the ladies, of course, are coming through, as it were. And it's something that we're going to be discussing further with regards the participation and presence of our women in the politics and governance of the country.
Congratulations.
And of course, now we see visuals of Tatinda Mavetera, the new Minister of ICT. She is a freshman, as I had hinted to earlier on. When we're going through the slate of the new ministers, Tatinda Mavetera, the new Minister for ICT there, just out of our picture. And now coming through there is Tino Machakaire. Last time around, he was a deputy minister deputizing Kirsty Coventry, and now that portfolio being somewhat split in half. Sport going with Kirsty Coventry and Tino Machakaire, now the minister there for youth.
Ministers of State now. Ministers of State. This is the preamble. We are done with the ministers. We are done, and now we are going to the Ministers of State.
And now, of course, we cross another bridge.
Set aside this one for a please.
As more ministers come through.
Remember ministers of state. The minister, cabinet minister, energy.
Ndwani?
Minister Edgar Moyo there coming through. Edgar Moyo, the Minister of Energy, he replaces Jemusoda as the Minister of that portfolio. He's got his work cut out for him. And of course, a light moment there as President Emerson Mnangagwa asked him what portfolio he's running with the minister, which he will. That's, of course, a lot of work there. Energy, as you know, at the heart of all our industrial purpose and domestic, as it were. He's under no illusion of the hard work, energy, and tireless dedication that he needs in order to go forth and go forward and, excuse the pun, shine.
MPO, and Alexa we use it 15 years.
So, I'm going to look at
Faculty of Education. Yes, we use it.
Yeah. Okay.
Congratulations. Good.
Now we're moving to the ministers of state.
The Minister of Education, Tererai Moyo, that was him. And of course, as we heard, a former lecturer. So he's in the trenches. He just moves from teaching proper, and he now is a minister of his portfolio. Tererai Moyo, who is the man? You wanted to see him, to find out more about him. And of course, we have seen him. As we now cross the bridge now from the ministers, and from this point onwards, after the swearing in of the ministers, our deep assumption is that we will be moving to the ministers of state. Of course, these are our representatives at all the provinces across the country. And those are 10 of those that we have. And there have been a couple of movers and shakers there. And of course, we're going to be seeing them as they take their oath of office. Of course, you're on ZTN Prime, where we're giving you the live swearing in show of the cabinet ministers.
Ministerial oath in the form set out in the third schedule. And whereas the President has duly appointed you, Judith Mukwanda,
Oh. Mazvano no tambwa.
And whereas the President has duly appointed you, Judith Mukwanda, Charles Zidzai Tabengwa, Ezra Chadzamira, Owen Ngube, Mishek Mugadza, Aplonia Mzerengwi, Miriam Chombo, Christopher Magomo, Richard Moyo, Evelyn Lovu as ministers of the government of Zimbabwe. Now, therefore, I, Emerson Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, do call upon you all to take the oath of minister.
Of course, now there we're seeing the ministers of state in their respective provinces. They've just taken their oath. They're pledging allegiance to their country. And, of course, secrecy, because it is what it is. We need to hold the integrity of our country. And amongst those are, of course, Evelyn Ndlovu from Matebele in the south. She takes over from the veteran Abednego Ncube, who is the outgoing. And as we see, some of these provincial ministers, as it were, as they sign and then take over. So let's listen in on the banter a bit.
Mkwanda is my father's name. They forgot to put the surname.
Surname?
Yes, on the ID.
Oh.
Yes, I'm just using my father's name. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Yes, James. All of this stuff. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Apollonia Mundrerengi, that's the provincial minister for Mashonaland East province. Of course, she will be stationed in the capital of that province, that's Marondera. We have Marian Chombo. Now, Marian Chombo is the Mashonaland West provincial minister. And she's been asked how she will acquit herself, and she says she will do her best, and certainly she must, because people in Mashonaland West call it Mashonaland Best.
Yeah, thank you very much for everything.
Magoma. Yes.
Congratulations, young man. Good.
Up next there, that's Richard Moyo. Richard Moyo is the Matabeleland North Provincial Minister.
Congratulations. Thank you, Excellency. Thank you very much.
Of Christopher Magomo, Mashonaland Central.
yangu iwani.
I wanted this myself. I've put it there. I wanted this to be firm and unite the people.
You see what else I did to the teachers. I will do the
I
same.
put you because I believe you are strong. Really. Don't discipline Agora de postura. Basta. Oh, I see. Congratulations.
I'm told we are done with the deputy with takuenda kuma deputy ministers manje. This is for the deputy ministers. Yakuverenga.
Deputy ministers, whereas in terms of subsection 2 of section 104 of the Constitution, the President may appoint deputy ministers to assist any minister in the exercise of his or her functions. And whereas in terms of subsection 6 of section 104 of the Constitution, before taking office, a deputy minister must take before the President the appropriate ministerial oath in the form set out in the third schedule. And whereas the President has duly appointed you, David Mnangagwa, Monica Mavunga, Emily Jesiah, Levi Maihlome, Jennifer Klanga, Dingimuzi Puti, Angeline Gata, Messi Dina, Yeukai Simbane Gavi, Vangelis Peter Aritatos, Davis Marapira as deputy ministers of the government of Zimbabwe. Now, therefore, I, Emerson Damza Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, do call upon you all to take the oath of Deputy Minister.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uvano visande bonzo.
Ndedza kuchechi. Congratulations.
Excellency.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you for the opportunity.
Kuisa kubi.
Ku War Veterans Affairs.
Ah, okay. Ndoko kubi.
Ndokwangu shefu. Nyaita ikirote. Ndoka ndakakurira.
Ongori se admin officer.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Mazungu ni Nobet. Mazungu ni Nobet.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Excellency.
Then, deputy.
Public service
Public
and
service.
social welfare.
I'm sure.
Public service, labor and social welfare.
What do you know? What do you know? Now I realize Bruce. Rafa, no man. Congratulations. Good. That's good.
Someone an honorable. Your Excellency. Siyaphila imbijana, Your Excellency. Sakara. Chari visaris.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Siyabonga kakhulu. I'm back to the barracks.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Zora kwa
Eh,
so hapana hicho kama.
ya hapana chef. Nikaita basi.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Congratulations.
Going back. 7 minutes.
Sure.
7 minutes.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, one. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Of course, there, as we're seeing the deputy ministers, they are reporting for duty. We started right at the top as the ministers proper, as it were, the cabinet ministers were sworn in, and then we went to the provincial ministers, and these represent the 10 various provinces that we have. And now we are at the tail end of proceedings at State House as the last batch of the deputy ministers take their oath and sign, and that's Evangelis Haritatis. They're one of the 2 deputy ministers in the Ministry of Agriculture. Of course, he also is signing in for duty there. As we see continued coverage coming live to you from here at ZTN Prime Herald House, and of course from State House, as we simultaneously cast this particular swearing in. Of course, as you'd remember, yesterday, that is when the lists of cabinet ministers, deputy ministers, and provincial ministers was announced. We brought you that coverage, and of course, we're following up on that to make sure that the signing in ceremony proper is done, and perhaps just even delve into some of the appointments and discuss those appointments, discuss the freshmen and women who are on board this time around, and see what the veterans, the old guard, will be expected to do, and some of the changes, of course, in the governance there.
Your Excellency, this is the last one. Okay. I'll take this one. Also take the pens. Thank you.
No, Varagandu, Chief Secretary. To come to the end of the process.
Your Excellency, Presidents, Vice Presidents, Ministers, we have come to the end of our important big program. To crown it all, you will be invited for some tea. It will be led by His Excellency the President and the Honorable Vice President.
Kindly have the tea on my behalf.
Of course, there, that is the tail end of the swearing in proper that we have been giving you, but by no means have we finished. Of course, my name is Robert Mukondiwa, and we're just going to be talking about some of those people who have been sworn in today, and I shall be having a couple of guests coming through so that we discuss the appointments and see what more can be sought of these appointees going forward, because after this are expectations at a national level and national scale. And we also then have to look forward and think how we can enhance our systems in order to bring up and bring forth the best minds, the best of the best, so that they can also throw their hats in civic service. Now, joining me in the studio as my first guest is none other than the chairperson of the Gender Commission, Margaret Sangarwe. And of course, central to a lot of issues that I've been talking about and referring to has been the issue of gender representation. And of course, this is something that is even enshrined in our constitution, because our women have to also play an integral role and part in the governance of their nation, as of course should the youth and also members of our society who are disabled. Welcome to this show, Mai Sangarwe, and it's a pleasure having you come through.
Thank you very much.
Well, before we go, delve deeper into all issues gender related, perhaps just what is your view in general with regards this current cabinet, and perhaps with a bias to what you have a passion for and the body that you're running has a passion for, equal representation for our men and our women?
The cabinet that His Excellency pronounced yesterday is 6 women and 20 men, which is 23%. Women constitute 23%. Yet, as you have just said, our constitution is very clear. It provides for 50-50 or equal representation of men and women. So as a commission and as a nation, I think we should be concerned that we have very few women who are participating in cabinet. And this is the same number of women who were in cabinet in the last cabinet. So we have not improved. In fact, in some areas we have actually regressed, and this is something which is of great concern to us.
Certainly. Last time around in 2018, we had a 14% participation of women, and that went down, of course, to 11%. And even at presidential level, the number of people that were running for the top job were less this time around. But of course, some people will argue that, you see, we've got this parliamentary system and the president's hands are tied. He can only draw from the pool that is available for him. And if the pool is small, all he can do is adhere to the Constitution. You've probably heard that argument. How can we work around that and in order to improve the situation as it stands?
I think there's a lot that can be done to improve the situation. Because at the moment we have about 83, if we include the quota, the women's quota, which is 60, plus the 23 who made it into parliament through the first past the post, plus the 3 who made it through the youth quota, that is 86 women. And I think it's quite a pool of women where ministers or cabinet ministers or deputy ministers can be drawn from. But still, our concern is that even in parliament, without the 60 seats that we have as a women's quota, we only had about 23 women, which is 10.9% of women who managed to go through parliament through first past the post, compared to about 14% in 2018, which means that the numbers have actually gone down. And this is something of great concern. And our proposal is what we have been suggesting, because we find that despite the efforts that we've been making as a commission and many other players in terms of trying to increase women's participation, it seems it's not happening. And we feel that maybe the only way to increase women's participation, first in parliament, is to adopt a different electoral system, which is proportional representation. I think we have proportional representation in the Senate, so you find in our Senate, women constitute about 48%, which is almost 50%, which is provided by the Constitution. So if we adopt a proportional representation system in the House of Assembly, I think that is the only way we can be able to get more women or to reach the 50-50 that is provided for in the Constitution. Or the other option is to have seats which are just for women, 105 out of the 210 seats if 105 is allocated, constituencies allocated for women, so women compete against themselves, and then 105 for men, and this can be changed after 5 years. So I think those are the two options that can only see us having 50% representation in parliament. Otherwise, with the first past the post, because of the disadvantages that women have, we might find that it will be very difficult to get to 50-50.
Speaking of which, the other option, fine, we've seen beautiful results coming from other countries, for example, countries like Rwanda. But some people may argue that there may be politics of patronage when you just go through a party list as opposed to going to the country and your constituents saying they absolutely want you. That's an argument that has been raised. And also, I think perhaps if we were to go back in the heart of the turn of the millennium, we've got certain instances where, for example, in Cholocho, the call was, let us have women run against each other, as you suggested. But some people then say we're disadvantaging a man who's homegrown, who's well-known, well-loved, and perhaps is a very strong candidate only because we want to satisfy a certain quota. And then that is also seen as tokenism. How do you balance that in order to kill the idea that there's tokenism as opposed to meritocracy? Because we, on one hand, we want to satisfy a quota and equal representation, but on the other hand, meritocracy is remarkably important.
It is important, meritocracy, but this issue has been raised many times to say if you allocate certain seats to women, it amounts to discrimination against men who may qualify. But I think our constitution even allows us to do affirmative action. I think it's part of affirmative action because we realize that women have been disadvantaged, and we realize that even if they are going to have the same opportunity, if they are going to be competing against men, they are not going to win, and this has been proven. So I think we are allowed to discriminate on the basis of affirmative action, so that we have also women coming in, because our women constitute 52% of the population, and to have 23% of women in cabinet when they constitute 52%, I don't think it is fair.
Well, some will also argue that when we do go to the country and the greater muscle in terms of the electorate and the people who vote are women, but it seems they're the first to practice a sort of political misogyny by not voting for their own and even looking down upon their own. How do we change that
I think
mindset?
this is something that has been said so often, but I don't agree with that notion at all. When we were training women to prepare them for this election, one of the questions we would ask the candidates is, when you were voted to participate, when you were voted through the primaries, because they don't do secret ballot, people stand behind you, and we're asking them, were there more women than men? And all the candidates we asked, they said there were more women supporting them. So I don't think this notion, I think it's just an excuse. But I think if you have 23 women or 70 women out of 546 men being candidates, even if women were going to vote for women, still will not have the numbers that we want. And also you should know that in our system, people vote for political parties. So if there's a man, a woman who is from a different political party than my party, obviously I cannot vote for the other woman, because our system is that we vote for political parties, not for individuals.
Certainly.
And the issue that you mentioned about Rwanda, I think we visited Rwanda twice to try to find out how they've managed to get more women in their parliament. And what we've realized is that Rwanda constitution says 30% should be women. And what they do is that they have a women's assembly that actually is supposed to put forward 30%.
Yes. Sorry, just to interrupt you, but it seems there's a bit of activity at State House where we've got our man on the ground, Eben Mabunda. And Eben, can you hear me? And if you can hear me, I hear you've got an interesting guest there for us with a bit of insight on how they're going to be running their portfolio going forward. I think we've had a bit of difficulty with Eben. I'm going to come back to you, Madam Sangarwe, in a bit. But some of the things you were saying, very interesting. I'm told we've got Candice Mwakalele. She's one of our anchors, and she's also going to be speaking to some of the issues you were talking about. But interestingly, you were talking about this women's assembly in Rwanda, and of course that 30%. But even though they were amongst the first to legislate for 30%, they seem to do even better than the 30%. What do they say about achieving that, and how do they achieve that?
What they do is that they have a number of constituencies which are allocated to the Women's Assembly. And the Women's Assembly is supposed to put in 30% of the total number of parliamentary seats belong to the Women's Assembly. So this will be 30% of women will be in the parliament. Then political parties are also they also have a number of constituencies that are allocated to political parties. But still, with the political parties, their candidates are supposed to have 30% women. So there's double 30%. That's why they end up with about 60%.
With good numbers. Okay, yes. Absolutely. Makes sense. And elsewhere, as I said, if we can go to our rooftop now, here at Zim Papers Television Network, we've got Candice Mwakalele. She's waiting for us at the rooftop, where she's also going to be giving us information with regards to issues of gender. And of course, Candice, pleasure having you around. And please, can you give us whatever perspectives you have at the moment with regards issues to do with gender?
Well, Robert, perhaps a good place for us to start would be a look at the statistics as they stand. Now, the 2023 cabinet that was just unveiled has 24 ministers. Of those 24, only 6 are women. Now, this is not entirely shocking that it's 6, because the previous cabinet also had 6 female ministers as well. But when you look at it from a percentages standpoint, then you may be a little bit alarmed, because when we compare it to the previous one, which had 30%, we are now sitting at 25%. That is a slight drop. Of course, for context, the previous cabinet had only 20 ministers, and now we have 24. But it is still a bit alarming to note that our figures are going down. And it may be important for us to start looking at why some of these things are happening, especially when it comes to women representation and women participation in terms of politics in general. Now, Zimbabwe's governance system is parliamentary. So one of the things that happens is our numbers have dwindled, starting very much from the National Assembly point. Only 70 women ran for National Assembly. But of course, we do have the proportional representation seats. But this also points to the low representation of women in these positions who are running for them. And when we look also on a national level, it means that, for the women who had registered to vote, they had less options of who they were going to select from, and in some cases had no choice but to vote for the men. So these are issues that we need to start unpacking as we go forward, as we start on a fresh page, looking at what it is that is deterring women from taking part in positions of power, taking part in politics. Is it the environment? Do they feel that they can participate? Are they willing to participate? These are some of the questions that we will need to be unpacking as we go forward, and hopefully find a way to encourage more women to participate in politics, so that we can actually bring our numbers back up and, of course, have more significance and more impact in the spaces that women need to be heard in.
Thank you so much, Candice. And for some of those things are what we've been discussing here in Studio 1 with Mrs. Margaret Sangarwe, of course, the chairperson of the Gender Commission. And you've been very, very patient. It's been a long day for the both of us. And thank you for joining us. But before you go, just perhaps other suggestions to help women not have cold feet when trying to enter the world of politics. It's cutthroat. It is very, very unfortunate that it is also toxic, and there's a toxicity to it that is perhaps misogynistic even, the name calling and that sort of thing, the prying. Nobody cares about this candidate X who is a man and whether they're married or not. But those questions, usually arise around women. And even right now on social media, we see the name calling, especially for the women. What do we do as a society to exercise ourselves of that misogyny, of discrimination of people that are different from us, and allow them space in order to participate in a country that belongs equally to them as to us?
I think we need a national dialogue on the issue of women's participation. As a commission, what we did before the 2023 election is that we went around the country, we identified women who were prepared to enter into politics in 2023, and we tried to train them so that, and we were covering all the areas that we felt they need to cover in terms of how to raise resources, how to deal with the media, and other issues of patriarchy, how to handle some of these issues. I know these are issues, some of them which are cultural, which will take time to overcome, but we have to continue to speak about it, so that even we have talked to the media, so that when the media portray, but it's more difficult when it comes to social media, but the other media houses, we've talked to them so that they can portray women in a positive rather than negative sense, because that scares other women from participating in politics. So I think we need a big outreach. We need to start now for 2028, so that we start talking to both men and women, so that they will understand that women have the capability as well as men to participate in politics, and that the playing field should be leveled, should be gender sensitive. We should look at the issues of eliminating issues of gender-based violence, sexual harassment, that actually prevent a lot of women from participating. So we have a lot of work to do as a nation. I think we need to look at women in a different light, that they are just as capable as men to participate in politics and decision making.
And the time to start that seems to be now, because, as you said, we need to start conscientizing women now that they can run and should run, whilst at the same time trying to chip away at these traditional norms that have become norms, but unfortunately have no place in the 21st century. Margaret Sangarwe, Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Gender Commission, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
And here we are, as we are looking at issues surrounding the swearing in of our various cabinet ministers. Don't go away, of course, because when I come back, I'll be joined by another guest, and we shall be continuing to analyze issues around this cabinet. Is it fit for purpose, and what do we expect of this particular cabinet that has been sworn in today? This is Election 2023, the swearing in of cabinet. Welcome back. This is ZTN Prime. My name is Robin Kondiwa, and we are following issues around the cabinet that was just sworn in this afternoon by Zimbabwe's president. Of course, that's Emmerson Mnangagwa, and one of those people are being interviewed currently by Felix Mona, the Minister of Transport, by Eben Mabunda.
Who has made this task easier for me, because I'm just going to continue with my portfolio. And what I like most about this portfolio, Eben, is that for the past 3 years I've been scoping the entire infrastructure component of the ministry, whether it comes to the roads, the rail, the air. So it's easier for me to go and implement. And we are going to be accelerating the infrastructure development. And I'm happy that with the advent of the Second Republic, you have seen the work ethic has changed. So tomorrow morning I'll be in the office pursuing the projects that were stalled. And I'm happy that as we partake this journey, we are also going to be synchronizing with other very important departments. You've got the information department through yourselves. We've got the fourth estate, where we are going to be working closely so that we showcase what we can do as Zimbabweans, and in particular, even those who are in the diaspora, to also occupy the space of infrastructure development. And the general people of Zimbabwe to say, let's come together so that we develop our country in accordance with the mantra of His Excellency, that nyika inovakwa nevayo.
Right, and of course one of the key subjects there would be that of road development across the country. What are you going to do differently, and how are you going to accelerate infrastructure development in as far as the roads network of Zimbabwe is concerned?
Thank you so much, Eben. If you have witnessed for the past 3 years, we had actually accelerated the Emergency Road Rehabilitation Program, where we're actually going through whether they were council roads, rural district council roads, the RIDA, which was known as DDF. But basically what we are doing is also to come up with contemporary measures so that we rehabilitate our roads. If you see even the gravel roads, where we are now moving towards the issues of having the nanotechnology, where we are moving from just grading roads. So we are saying as we then progress in this 2023-2024, you will see us coming with innovative measures as a ministry, where we are also going to be enhancing public-private partnerships so that everyone partakes in the exercise of rebuilding this nation.
Right, and of course also relevant would be that of air travel. We've seen multiple airlines that are now servicing Harare and different particular routes, of course, linking with Zimbabwe, and multiple developments taking place in there, as well as also the expansion of the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International. How critical is that, and how are you going to work around the synergies that have been brought about because of that?
Thank you so much, Eben. You have actually put it right in the essence that we've upgraded the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International, which now competes internationally. And we are saying now it will enhance tourism, and are also going to be working closely with the Minister of Tourism so that we start introducing other airlines. As we speak, we are over 20 airlines plying our route, and we are saying as a nation we must brag and be proud of this infrastructure, which we are also saying we are underutilizing as we speak. You know, we're targeting 2.5 million, but now we've moved to 6 million passengers per year. And you can see the amazing infrastructure, the amazing amenities within that new infrastructure. So basically, yes, we also need to do collaborations. We also need to do code sharing with other airlines so that as we then move towards the greater picture of 2030 agenda, we'll be in tandem with what His Excellency is desiring.
And lastly, the subject of rail network of Zimbabwe. What are you looking to bring to the table to transform the status quo?
Thanks, Eben. What I like about this ministry, it encompasses very economic sectors which are of paramount importance. And you have cited the rail, and I'm happy as we close the last session, we had also procured from Rice Company about 9 locomotives and a number of wagons, so that we are going to be rehabilitating our rail network. As you know, we are talking of about 2.6 kilometer stretch, which is 2,600 kilometer stretch of rail network within the country. But we are saying of that, only 10% has got cautions, and these cautions are what we call potholes when we talk of a road. And our focus now is to go and rehabilitate those cautions so that the rail is navigable. And we are saying at the end of the day, you see us now also working in tandem with other players within the region. We are also going to be opening the Kafue Lions Den route, which would then connect the missing link which was there with ourselves in Zambia. And I'll be meeting the Minister of Transport shortly.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. And we wish you all the success in this 5-year term.
Thank you so much, Eben.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, of course, he's got his work cut out for him. That ministry encompasses rail, road, air and sea. And while we may be landlocked, of course, we do get to get a lot of sea travel and sea trade via our neighbors, most importantly, of course, Mozambique and South Africa. So that was Felix Mona there speaking to Eben Mabunda there live from State House. And of course, we continue to unpack the cabinet as it was presented yesterday and as it has been sworn in today. And my next guest is Zach Murerwa, and Zach Murerwa is an economic specialist and analyst, and as well as the head of Stallone Consultancy. Welcome to this unpacking show. It's been a long afternoon. We've been waiting very, very patiently. And thank you for being patient. But of course, you've been listening in. And before we get into your general impressions, let's just go to what Felix Mona was speaking about right now. Saying, you know, he's got definitely his work cut out for him. And the lifeblood of our economy rests a lot on his portfolio, on sound roads, but especially now he even spoke about the rail situation, which is a bit shambolic, but it has been at the heart of rehabilitation. What do you think he has to do, and what do the challenges look like for Felix Mona?
Quite interesting to be listening to his vision, to what he has done, what they've done as a ministry. It is critical, it is important that when you look at infrastructure development, you are looking at the basis on which you are going to develop your network in terms of your industry, in terms of transporting your people, your goods and services that are a requisite for the development of our beloved Zimbabwe. Now, if you look at the transport sector, a milestone has, as he has been saying, the work, the wonderful work that has been done by the Airports Company of Zimbabwe in terms of rehabilitating not only what you see in terms of the major airport, the Robert Gabriel Mugabe Airport, but in respect of other airports and other ports that are being opened. A lot also has been done in terms of the roadway work. Unfortunately, in terms of the rail, as you have correctly put it, it's not in a desirable state. You know, to just imagine that at one stage we had Harare to Dabuka electrified, and we then took retrogressive steps. So that needs to be done. And I am happy that His Excellency said infrastructure development, national projects, not only in respect of what Felix Mona was just explaining, but also in terms of the totality, the funding, the private partnership, and the dialogue that is necessary for government to enter with the development partners. Infrastructure development being proper in developing countries, if it is done and it is at an ideal level, you can reach as much as 34% of your GDP in terms of that is the aiding factor that you have got. Beautiful, beautiful. And now coming to the cabinet, as it were, you saw it was announced yesterday, mixed feelings, mostly positive. Yeah. What is your personal impression of the cabinet at a glance? Yeah, all right. Not really talking in terms of views that we've had and whatever, but I think what is critical, what is important as a nation now, we are now in a serious mode of developing the nation. There are three issues that we need to address. The issue of confidence. Confidence that we have got the people that we need, the drivers to drive the national programs, our blueprints to the ultimate. We want to achieve the objectives in the 14 national priority areas that we have got in NDS 1, and 2025 is not very far away. So these people who have been appointed, my personal opinion is they must be committed. They have to be drivers. What is pleasing now is what government introduced a few months ago, 1.5 years ago, the issue of performance contracts. that each and every minister is not going to be a political appointee and where you can just sit. You have to produce results. And the design of these performance contracts is excellent, because you look at outcomes, you look at outputs, you look at what each minister has achieved. So we expect them to hit the ground running. You heard it from Felix Mona that I'm in the office tomorrow doing business. Yeah. We expect the same thing. This idea of just going on and you have a period of 100 days and so on and so forth, I think that's a thing of the past. We have to move. Growing this economy requires collective efforts.
And we're just sadly running out of time. But they are freshmen, but we've got old horses, old guards, and I'm picking from what you've said. Not all of them are received with the same joy in being returning residents, as it were. If you are that one minister that everybody is saying, oh, but how could Robert Mkondiwa come back? What would you be thinking right now in order to pull up your socks? Because you don't want to be that particular name that is always picked on and people say, well, this person didn't do a good job. If your principal has had faith in you and said, okay, people may not be happy, but we're bringing this person, what would you do really, really quickly in order to come onto the fray along with everybody else?
Prove your worthiness, prove who you are. Prove your fundamental understanding of the basics, the macroeconomic dynamics that make this nation and this economy move. Prove and show to the nation your plan and get everything rolling.
Thank you. And I just had to have that in, but unfortunately we've run out of time. My name is Robert Mkondiwa. This was the swearing-in ceremony, and but we've really unpacked, had a lot of fun. This is the end. This is goodbye.